picture the absolute pinnacle of ancient security and opulence. Like the air is just thick with the scent of burning incense. You have royals draped in these exquisite fabrics. And, well, a man stands in a grand court receiving a sprinkling of saffron on his forehead.
Right, which is a massive deal.
Exactly. That ritual marks him as the supreme defender of an empire. So he is untouchable, completely insulated by the highest walls of civilization. But then pan the camera across the globe to the scorching, unforgiving deserts en route to Sind.
Yeah, a completely different world.
Completely. There you find a trembling fugitive. She's crammed into this dusty, narrow animal burrow beneath a cluster of date palms, just desperately hoping the military deck squad sweeping the camp right above her doesn't hear her breathing.
The juxtaposition there is just staggering. I mean, we are looking at peak societal power and luxury on one hand, and then literal ground-level doot and grit survival on the other.
And that contrast is exactly our mission for today's deep dive.
Right.
We are exploring this really fascinating ancient narrative that bridges these two incredible extremes.
Yeah, it's a brilliant text.
It really is. The goal here is to unpack the mechanics hidden within these sources, the bizarre religious politics of ancient statecraft, the grim logistics of survival out on the trade routes, and the intense human drama connecting all of it.
Because there's a lot connecting them, even if it's not obvious at first.
Right. We're going to examine how a strict monotheist inadvertently becomes a polytheistic empire's royal sorcerer. And on the flip side, how a fugitive's life is ultimately saved by a plate of sweet date halwa and, well, a wild creature's hole in the ground.
The sources really provide this masterclass in how human beings adapt to their environments, and more importantly, how massive systems of power like royal court or a military cavalry can just be completely subverted by the smallest, most hyperlocal human elements.
Let's start with those massive systems of power. In the metropolis of Mohenjo-Daro, our protagonist, Zayn, finds himself in this highly charged, almost suffocatingly ritualistic space.
Oh, the tension is palpable.
Totally. He has just intervened to save a young girl named Lila from being bound to a pillar. And in doing so, he completely obliterates the current royal sorcerer in this very public showdown.
Yeah, he essentially shatters the established power dynamic of the entire kingdom in, what, a matter of minutes?
Basically, yeah. And the royal family, the prince and the queen mother, are understandably stunned by this. I mean, they immediately want to know the source of Zayn's incredibly potent magic.
Right, because they assume he has tapped into some arcane reservoir they just haven't seen before. They want to categorize him.
But Zayn flat out rejects their entire premise. Like, he tells the royal court that what they call magic is not magic at all.
Which is such a bold move in that setting.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
He credits the grace and blessing of his one god, and he explicitly states that if he had relied on sorcery, he would have met with utter defeat. So he draws this massive theological line in the sand.
Yeah, he tells them that in his faith, sorcery is strictly forbidden. And Zayn isn't just, declining a compliment here. He is making a profound ontological claim. He is standing in front of a polytheistic royal court and declaring that the universe has one sovereign.
Wow. Yeah.
And that true power comes from submission to that sovereign, not from manipulating arcane forces. But the really fascinating part is how the Queen Mother processes this whole speech.
She just kind of brushes past it, right?
Exactly. She operates within a purely transactional polytheistic framework. To her, gods are essentially patrons who grant abilities. So she dismisses his theology entirely. She states they only acknowledge their own deities, but then immediately offers him the job of royal sorcerer anyway.
Just because he has the most raw power.
Precisely. Utility over theology.
And the former sorcerer just storms out in an ashen rage, dragging his apprentice behind him. But here's the part that really gets me. Zayn actually accepts the position.
He does.
I have to pause here, because the internal logic feels so deeply contradictory to me. Zayn just publicly condemned magic as a forbidden practice.
Right, a mortal sin in his eyes.
Yeah. So accepting the title of the realm's top magician seems like a massive compromise. It makes me think of like a staunch, lifelong vegan, someone who built their whole identity around it, suddenly accepting the job of head butcher at a major meat corporation.
That is a great analogy.
Right. Just because they offer him a corner office and a fancy title. How does a man reconcile declaring magic forbidden and then immediately clocking in as the chief sorcerer?
Well, if we look at the mechanics of ancient statecraft, that contradiction actually dissolves into brilliant pragmatism.
Okay, unpack that for me.
So, empires functioned on a principle where utility always superseded ideology. The royal family of Mohenjo-Daro doesn't really care about the theological nuance of Zayn's power.
They just want the results.
Exactly. They don't care if he calls it the grace of the one god or arcane sorcery. They just watch this total stranger casually dismantle their top magical defender. From a geopolitical perspective, an unaligned stranger with that much power is a massive, massive threat.
Oh, I see. So by offering him the title, they institutionalize him.
Yes. They neutralize him as a potential enemy and simultaneously gain a tremendously powerful asset to defend the crown.
So the royals are neutralizing a rogue variable by absorbing him into the state apparatus. That makes sense. And for Zayn, I guess the pragmatism works in reverse, right?
Yeah, exactly right.
Because he is a foreigner in this deeply unfamiliar, somewhat hostile land. Refusing the crown's offer might make him an immediate target.
Right, you don't say no to the Queen Mother.
Yeah, but accepting the title secures him state protection, unlimited resources, and a strategic foothold.
It's a calculated geopolitical infiltration on his part. He gets the entire infrastructure of a superpower behind him, and they get a superweapon. The title itself, Royal Sorcerer, is just the diplomatic cover for this mutual survival pact.
That mutual survival pact is solidified through this very specific, very sensory coronation ritual. The prince sprinkles saffron on Zayn's forehead, officially binding him to the state as the sanctioned sorcerer.
Which is such a striking visual.
It is. And he's granted this magnificent pavilion beside the grandest temple in the city. It comes complete with a lush garden and a waterfall spilling into a serene pool.
Not a bad perk for the job.
No, not at all. It's an incredible anchor for him. And the text reveals the mechanics behind why he is so eager to secure a base in this specific geography. Mohenjo-Daro is the absolute apex of urbanization and civilization at the time.
Right, it's the center of the world.
But its only real rival in progress is a city called Harappa, which is located some distance away. But Zayn is disgusted by Harappa. He's heard these unsettling rumors that the Harappans sacrifice bulls and worship snakes.
Which, given Zayn's strict monotheism, isn't just a distaste for weird local customs,
Yeah.
It is fundamentally antithetical to his entire worldview.
Right.
He chooses the environment that offers the highest standard of living with the least amount of ideological friction. He anchors himself in the center of what he perceives as civilization.
It's like a modern professional choosing a high-tech hub over a rural town with practices they just can't stand. But the narrative uses that geographical anchor to build incredible tension.
It really does.
Because Zayn is entirely static in this luxurious pavilion, but his mind is completely consumed by the fate of a woman named Asha.
Right. He can't stop thinking about her.
Asha was brutally abducted by bandits, and Zayn has been agonizing over her whereabouts, convinced she's been sold into the slave markets of Egypt or Syria. He consults a goddess for information, and is handed this maddening riddle.
Yes,
The
the riddle.
goddess tells him that Asha is traveling with a caravan, and that just pivots everything from this macro-level empire building to a micro-level missing person case.
And that riddle highlights a major logistical reality of the ancient world. In an era where populations were largely static, tied to their farms or their cities, a moving caravan was this decentralized, shifting entity.
It's not like you can just look up their itinerary online.
Exactly. The sheer scale of these trade routes meant that searching for one person in a caravan was literally like looking for a moving needle in a constantly shifting haystack. The geographic contrast here is profound.
Because Zayn is stationary, safe, and powerful.
While Asha is highly mobile, incredibly vulnerable, and in constant danger.
And we see that vulnerability firsthand when the narrative shifts away from those saffron-scented courts and drops us right onto those grueling trade routes.
It's a harsh transition.
Asha has managed to escape her captor, a man described as a one-eyed, dark-skinned prince in Egypt, and she is making a desperate journey towards Sind. To survive the exposure of the road, she's disguised herself as a man, an Arab trader named Al-Harith.
The mechanics of maintaining that kind of deep cover in a survival scenario are just grueling. It's not just about wearing different clothes, right?
No, definitely not.
It requires this constant, exhausting hypervigilance over every micro-expression and physical habit.
And the text highlights that physical toll brilliantly. Asha befriends a Syrian merchant named Idris, and to keep up the charade around him, she overcompensates with this exaggerated macho bravado.
She really leans into it.
She tears off this massive chunk of tough, roasted camel meat and aggressively chews it to the point where her jaw is fiercely aching just to project the image of a hardened brute.
She is literally putting herself in physical pain just to maintain the illusion of masculinity.
But the disguise eventually crumbles. And it doesn't happen during some dramatic bandit raid or a tense interrogation by guards. It falls apart over dessert and a game.
Which is fascinating. It's a recurring theme in deep cover operations, actually, even historically.
Really, like the mundane stuff gets them.
Exactly. The massive structural defenses hold up perfectly, but the failure point is almost always mundane muscle memory.
Wow. Well, they are resting at an oasis, and Asha is preparing a sweet halwa out of dates. Idris casually observes that she makes this halwa exactly as a woman would.
A tiny slip-up.
Asha panics, obviously, and invents a story about being raised by her aunts, trying to deflect. But Idris pushes the issue and challenges her to a test of grip strength, an arm wrestling match.
Because that's how men in those merchant groups tested each other.
Right. Asha tries to refuse, but the social dynamics of male merchant groups often require participating in these physical dominance tests just to maintain face. So she is forced to accept.
And the physical mismatch is absolute.
It is. Idris slams her arm down with such sheer force that she is literally knocked to the ground. Her turban is dislodged, and her long, thick hair spills out into the open. It's like a high-stakes undercover spy getting burned, not by an enemy syndicate, but by a dessert recipe and an arm wrestling challenge.
Her entire safety net dissolves in a fraction of a second. The walls of her fortress were impenetrable to the outside world, but someone left the side door unlocked through a culinary habit and a social game.
And the stakes of that exposure are astronomical. Asha begs for silence and reveals to Idris that she isn't just a runaway. She is a fugitive slave who was purchased for a staggering 120,000 rials.
To put that into perspective for you, that is the economic equivalent of a small fleet of merchant ships.
It's an insane amount of money.
She is an immensely valuable, stolen asset. If she is returned, the financial reward would be life-changing for whoever turns her in.
But if she's caught by the prince,
the retribution will be horrific. Idris explicitly warns her that a man like the Egyptian prince might wall her up alive where she would never see the sun again.
But Idris doesn't turn her in. He goes from being a casual travel buddy to a sworn protector in an instant. He promises, by the gods, to deliver her safely to her parents in Arapa.
Which highlights something really fascinating about the human infrastructure of these trade routes. Without state law enforcement, survival relied entirely on spontaneous, intense alliances and personal honor codes.
Right, because there's no police to call.
Exactly. The Silk Road honor system was incredibly robust precisely because the environment was so hostile. Merchants relied on oaths and spiritual fear because reputation was the only currency that kept you alive out there. Idris's personal code of honor overrides the immediate financial temptation of the bounty.
And that personal oath is immediately put to the test, because the past physically catches up to them. The narrative draws a really sharp contrast here between the logistics of merchant travel and military pursuit.
Right, the pacing completely changes.
By custom, the caravan rests at the oasis during the blazing hot day and marches only during the cooler nights, to preserve their animals and cargo. But the one-eyed Egyptian prince's soldiers,
they don't care about custom.
No, they are operating on a relentless military timetable, riding day and night, pushing their horses to the absolute brink to close the distance.
The cavalry speed, fueled by sheer military discipline, completely bypasses the environmental limitations that the merchants respect. That speed allows them to intercept the caravan while it is immobilized at the oasis.
A cloud of dust appears on the horizon, and the soldiers ride into the camp. And here is where the complexities of caravan architecture really come to light. The commander of the soldiers rides in, shakes hands with the caravan leader, and reveals they are old friends.
A terrible coincidence for Asha.
The commander explains that the prince's most cherished runaway slave is supposedly traveling with this group. The caravan leader readily agrees to let them search everyone, claiming he would have bound her in chains himself if he had known.
He's fully cooperative.
When I read this, I found it almost unbelievable. I mean, if the caravan leader is such close friends with the prince's men, how is it structurally possible that he didn't know a 120,000 rial fugitive was traveling right under his nose for weeks?
Well, it fundamentally challenges our modern understanding of travel and surveillance. Today, a group of travelers is highly centralized, names are on a manifest, passports are scanned, movements are tracked.
Right, you can't just blend in on a flight.
Exactly. But an ancient merchant caravan was not a single cohesive entity. It was an agglomeration of dozens of independent trading houses, mercenaries, families, and stragglers that stretched for miles. It functioned as a moving, decentralized city.
So the caravan leader is functioning more like a mayor or a perimeter defense coordinator, not an administrative overseer.
Precisely. He dictates the route and coordinates defense against bandits, but he does not have the administrative capacity to audit the internal demographics of every single tent.
That makes a lot of sense.
If you paid your fees and didn't cause trouble, the anonymity was almost absolute. Asha hid perfectly within the statistical noise of that massive, fluid population.
But now, that structural anonymity is totally gone.
Mm-hmm.
The soldiers are going to visually inspect every single person in the camp. Idris has to think fast, and he relies on exploiting the physical blind spots of a military sweep.
He has to improvise under extreme pressure.
He pulls Asha away from the gathering crowd and leads her to a thick stand of date palms near some sand dunes. He spots this narrow, half-hidden opening the burrow of some wild creature.
Just a hole in the dirt.
Literally, he claws at the dirt, widens it just enough, and orders Asha inside. She crams herself into this dark earthen hole. Idris then covers the opening with stones and thorny brush, camouflaging it to look completely natural before running back to blend in with the crowd.
It is a brilliant exploitation of microgeography. Cavalry sweeps rely on elevated visual perspectives.
Right, they're up on horses.
Men on horseback are standing for structures, tents, and running figures. They are looking for human architecture. A microdepression in the earth concealed by local flora completely subverts their search paradigm.
The psychological tension in that burrow is just suffocating. The commander and the caravan leader walk through the camp, staring into the faces of every woman there.
It's terrifying.
The text makes it clear that had Asha been standing in the crowd, her face would have betrayed her instantly. Instead, she is curled up in the dirt, her body aching, hardly daring to breathe, while the heavy hooves of the cavalry trample the ground just inches above her.
It is a profound demonstration of the physical endurance required to survive when you are the target of a state apparatus. She is reduced to relying on the very earth itself to shield her from an empire's reach.
And the camouflage holds. The caravan leader insists she isn't there, and the soldiers, relying on their visual sweep and the leader's word, eventually admit defeat. They mount their horses and ride off.
They just leave.
Idris waits until the dust settles, sneaks back to the palms, pulls away the thorny brush, and Asha crawls out into the light, every joint in her body aching from the confinement.
The massive, rigid military machine was completely defeated by a stranger's spontaneous loyalty and a hole in the dirt.
It perfectly encapsulates the incredible spectrum of ancient life we set out to explore today. We started in the towering, saffron-sprinkled courts of Mohenjo-Daro, watching a man outmaneuver the highest levels of a royal court by leveraging theological semantics and raw pragmatism to secure his safety. And we end with the vulnerable fugitive, stripped of her elaborate disguise by a simple culinary habit, surviving a military death squad only because she crammed herself into an animal burrow.
It really shows how massive, rigid systems of power, whether it's a polytheistic throne room, a moving city of merchants, or a relentless cavalry, are constantly being subverted by the most intimate, hyper-local human actions.
It is the ultimate testament to adaptability. Whether you are navigating complex corporate politics and taking on surprising new roles, or relying entirely on adaptability and the kindness of strangers in a crisis, resourcefulness is just a timeless human trait.
It really is. But if we pull back and look at the entire board, these two separate stories are creating an incredibly dangerous geopolitical paradox.
Well, they are absolutely on a direct collision course.
Let's just examine the pieces in play. The goddess delivered the prophecy that Asha would be continuously traveling. Idris just swore a sacred, unbreakable oath to the gods to deliver Asha directly to her parents in Harappa. So she is moving steadily toward that specific city.
Well, Zayn is deeply rooted in place.
Rooted in the one city that stands in direct opposition to Harappa. Zayn has deep, agonizing personal ties to Asha. He is desperate to find her.
Right.
Yet his new official title is the state-sanctioned defender of Mohenjo-Daro, an empire that views Harappa as its greatest cultural and geopolitical rival.
Wow. Yeah.
When these two trajectories finally intersect, Zayn's rigid, newly sworn duties to defend the crown of Mohenjo-Daro are going to violently clash with his personal devotion to a woman arriving from the very city he is supposed to despise.
It is a geopolitical powder keg waiting for a single spark. And when it ignites, I have a feeling neither the royal courts nor the desert sands will remain unscathed. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Take that thought with you, and we'll see you next time.